Look at the person who is always there, the one who answers every message within seconds, who rearranges their entire schedule to accommodate a last-minute request, and who constantly smiles through their own discomfort just to keep the peace. We are taught to praise this person. We call them reliable. We call them kind. We call them nice. But if you look closer, beneath the surface of that relentless compliance, you will see a quiet tragedy. You will see a person who is systematically erasing their own value. They believe that their constant availability will buy them affection, respect, and loyalty. They are entirely wrong. In the raw, unfiltered theater of human nature, a devastating truth dictates every interaction. We do not value what is free. We do not desire what is infinite. The human brain is a predatory organ shaped by millions of years of scarcity, and it is biologically incapable of appreciating a resource that refuses to ration itself. By being too nice, you are not building a connection. You are building your own prison. You have turned yourself into a guarantee, and a guarantee never triggers fascination. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli understood the brutal mechanics of power and human perception better than anyone before or since. He knew that the moment you become entirely predictable, you become useless to the narrative of power. To navigate a world built on hidden motives and shifting alliances, you cannot rely on the fragile hope of mutual kindness. You must understand the architecture of scarcity. You must learn how to strategically withdraw your presence, ration your attention, and force the world to face the terrifying prospect of your absence. If you want to unlock an obsession, if you want to shift from a helpless bystander to a magnetic force, you must stop trying to be liked. You must learn how to be missed. The curse of the nice person begins with a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain calculates value. When you make yourself endlessly accessible, you trigger a rapid psychological devaluation. In economic terms, when supply is infinite, the price drops to zero. In psychological terms, when your attention is effortless to obtain, it loses its chemical weight. The human reward system relies entirely on dopamine, and dopamine does not fire for the things we already own. It fires for the chase. It fires for the uncertainty of the reward. When you answer every call on the first ring, when you validate every statement, and when you forgive every boundary violation without a consequence, you kill the dopamine. You strip the other person of the opportunity to wonder about you. You think you are proving your loyalty, but your brain is actually broadcasting a message of low status. You are signaling that your time has no intrinsic worth, that your life is empty of competing priorities, and that you are terrified of rejection. The moment the other person realizes you will never leave, they stop looking at you as an equal partner. They classify you as a baseline utility. You become like the air they breathe or the ground they walk on. Essential, perhaps, but entirely unnoticed until it is gone. You become a certainty, and certainties do not occupy the mind late at night. To break this cycle of self-inflicted insignificance, we must look to the chancellery of Renaissance Florence. Machiavelli famously posited a chilling question in his masterwork: is it better to be loved or feared? His conclusion was clinical. It is ideal to be both, but since they rarely coexist, it is infinitely safer to be feared than loved. When we translate this political doctrine into modern relational psychology, fear does not mean tyranny or malice. It means the quiet, unwavering presence of a boundary. It means the underlying threat of your permanent unavailability. A nice person operates entirely on the currency of love, desperately seeking validation through submission. A Machiavellian strategist operates on the currency of respect. They understand that affection is volatile and easily turns into contempt when it is unearned. By establishing a controlled distance, you introduce an element of healthy anxiety into the mind of the observer. They can no longer take you for granted because they do not fully own you. They realize that your presence is a privilege that must be actively maintained, not a permanent inheritance they can neglect without penalty. You shift the power dynamic entirely. You are no longer begging for a seat at the table. You are deciding who is worthy of sitting next to you. Implementing this shift requires the immediate execution of a scarcity protocol. It demands that you violently deconstruct your old habits of immediate compliance and replace them with a calculated economy of attention. The first step is the elimination of instant responsiveness. When a message arrives, you do not drop your life to answer it. You allow a vacuum to form. In that vacuum, the other person's mind is forced to work. They begin to ask questions. Where are they? Who are they with? Why am I not their immediate priority? This mental friction is where obsession is born. The moment they are forced to spend their own cognitive energy trying to decipher your schedule, your psychological value begins to skyrocket. Furthermore, your boundaries must become absolute ironclad structures. When someone crosses a line, you do not smooth it over with an uncomfortable laugh or an immediate justification. You respond with a cold, clear withdrawal of your warmth. You let the silence do the heavy lifting. This tactical retreat forces the other person to confront the immediate consequence of their behavior. They experience a sharp, localized loss aversion. The primitive sectors of their brain panic at the sudden drop in validation, and they will naturally expend massive amounts of energy trying to restore the balance. You have taught them, without a single scream or argument, that your attention must be paid for with respect. True fascination cannot exist in an environment of total predictability. If someone knows exactly how you will react to every scenario, if they can read your thoughts before you speak, they will inevitably grow bored. Boredom is the silent killer of all relational gravity. To counter this, you must destroy the safe, comfortable script they have written for you. You must introduce controlled anomalies into your behavior. If you have always been the one who calls at the end of the day, stop calling. If you have always agreed with their opinions, offer a sharp, intellectual counter-perspective without apologizing for it. This is not about playing superficial mind games. This is about revealing the hidden depths of your autonomy. It is about reminding the world that you are a complex, independent entity with a private world they do not have automatic permission to access. When you become slightly unpredictable, you break their pattern recognition. Their brain can no longer run your persona on autopilot. They are forced to pay attention, to reevaluate their assumptions, and to actively study you to find their footing again. You become a riddle that demands to be solved. The final transformation is the complete dismantling of the nice person's mask. You must realize that your historical need to be perpetually pleasant was never an act of genuine kindness. It was a defense mechanism born from a fear of conflict and a deep-seated belief that your raw, unfiltered self was not enough to command respect. When you shed this mask, you do not become cruel. You become heavy. You develop a gravity that pulls people into your orbit because you are entirely anchored in your own reality. You no longer look to others to define your worth or validate your existence. Your time, your intellect, and your affection become premium assets, fiercely guarded and strategically deployed. The people who once looked past you will suddenly find themselves looking up at you. They will begin to modulate their tone, edit their words, and chase your approval because they perceive that your validation is rare, expensive, and incredibly difficult to secure. You have shifted from the hunter to the prize. Dark psychology is often misunderstood as a toolkit for overt manipulation and malicious control. But in its truest, most defensive form, it is simply a map of human nature as it actually is, not as we wish it to be. It is a shield designed to protect your autonomy from a world that will gladly consume you if you offer yourself up for free. Stop letting your identity be a cheap, readily available commodity. Stop allowing your kindness to be weaponized against your own status. Step off the racetrack of perpetual validation, embrace the cold power of strategic scarcity, and let the world learn the heavy cost of your absence. The age of compliance is over. Turn off the default settings, subscribe to Architecture of Emotions, and let us build your position of power together.